to go live. Oh, they are prepared. Okay, so good evening and welcome to General Council of April 26th. I'll first begin by, oh, my apologies. I'll first begin by identifying any media on the line.
Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News.
Good evening, Victoria.
Good evening.
Are there any representatives for the Two Row Times?
Hi, Donna from the Two Row Times.
Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Good evening.
You too.
Okay, I also just want to say nyama to Amber Squire for her opening address. That's usually prior to live stream to get us in that good mind and good way of thinking. Number 3 on our agenda is our changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda.
I'll move, Mark.
Nathan. Oh, my apologies. Just 1 second, Audrey. Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. I just want to pull recommendation 1 from in camera into open. And I'll be speaking on behalf of the Six Nations Police Commission on that one.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Is there any opposition to 5.1 to be moved from in camera to open? Okay, seeing or hearing none, we'll move forward with that. Nathan, thank you. Are there any others? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I'll look to then a mover in seconder to adopt the General Council of agenda of April 26th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, seconder.
I'll second it, Melba.
Second by Melba. Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We do have one delegation this evening who I believe is online. I seen her online, Sharon Tan, who is looking for submission and approval of her application of the Research Ethics Committee. So I believe Sharon is on the line. Good evening, Sharon.
Hi, Chief Mark, and thank you for, and I guess for the council for inviting me today.
Perfect. Yes, no problem. So what we'll do is we usually give about 10-15 minutes or so for presentation and Q&As, and then we'll look to the recommendations. So at this point in time, I'll just pass the floor right over to yourself to walk us through your presentation.
Perfect. And do I have permission to share my screen, or would you like me to just express it orally?
No, you should have permission to share your screen.
Okay, just give me a second. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. And I'll be mindful of the time and hope I can stay within the 10-minute time frame. So this was a presentation that I did give to the council or the committee back in January 2022, but assuming that there have been no changes to what was originally presented, I'm going to present the same content to ensure integrity to what I developed with the partner. So I'll just get started. So this project is called Initiating a Dialogue on Dementia and Elder Abuse, and also known as IDEA, to be cheeky for short. So I'll just move on with the slides. So this is the agenda for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself as well as my relations, and then I'll move more into the background and objectives, as well as the design and methods and other potential risks and benefits and questions. I do want to acknowledge where I'm currently situated, and this is also going to be in the next slide. So this is a little bit about me. So my name is Sharon. I identify as a daughter of Chinese immigrants, so I come from settler roots. I was initially born in Edmonton, actually, and eventually moved to what is now known as Vaughan, or the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, as well as the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Also about me is that I completed a Master's of Public Health and specifically in Indigenous Health. I'm currently sitting inside the office of the Wakbaness Institute for Indigenous Health that I'm not sure if some of you may know, but I do want to be clear that the project that I'm proposing today is not affiliated with my work with the Institute, just in case people see what's in the background and everything. And rather the work I'm bringing to the community today is from the National Initiative for the Care of the Elderly, which is a nonprofit organization based in Tacarano or in Toronto. I do also, like, as I mentioned, I think it's really important that I highlight some of the people who have placed their knowledge as well as has guided me through this process, and one being my family, who continue to inspire me to do work related to equity and social justice, but also who I would consider my mentor, Dr. Angela Mashford Pringle, who has been supporting me and has provided me multiple opportunities related to Indigenous health and as well as in my studies, and have taught me a lot about engagement as well as methodologies in relation to working with Indigenous communities. And I guess a little bit more about some of the relationships I have specifically to Six Nations, as well as the work of this project that I'm proposing today. So I've previously worked with a partner in Six Nations related to several infographics. I'm not sure if some of the folks on this call have seen these infographics before. They were placed in a number of seniors baskets earlier in 2021, I believe, or over the pandemic. And they had to deal with elder abuse and neglect, as well as financial abuse and frauds and scams. And these were co-developed with the community partner I worked with at Six Nations Health Services, because there was a need to address some of the concerns that were arising, especially as a result of COVID. Some of us may be getting those alarming phone calls sometimes on our phone, talking about a variety of scams, as well as other frauds that are happening. And I think as a purpose of reducing the amount of abuse that can happen to the elders as well as seniors in our community is really important to have these infographics available in an accessible format. I do also want to highlight that I do acknowledge that the term elder itself does have very specific and significant significance within Indigenous communities. And I'm saying this from the perspective of someone who is a settler as well. And in this presentation, I'll be using both the terms elders as well as seniors to respect that. In terms of the other relationships in relation to this project, we are partnered with a number of organizations, as you can see below here. So this includes the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, the Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, Alzheimer's Society of Ontario, Jane and Finch Center, the 519, Elder Help Peel, as well as the Prince Edward County for Community Care for Seniors. I also want to mention the project that or titled IDEA is also funded by the Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors program. So a little bit more about the background, and also highlighting the importance of why this project is important. I want to first start off by saying, abuse and neglect are very complex, and especially amongst people living with dementia. This project is also based off of a previous project that we conducted back in 2015, which suggested that seniors who may be experiencing abuse may often go to their senior friends or peers. We've also know that the current research demonstrates that 2 out of 3 people living with dementia have experienced abuse or have been abused, and more specifically in Canada, for the 10% of seniors experience abuse, and among seniors living with dementia, this increases to 5.4 to 12% who experience abuse. And I think the other idea I think about too, if some of the folks on the line can see what I have on the right-hand side, this was a graphic that we co-developed, that my team co-developed with our partner at Six Nations Health Services. And I remember during this conversation quite vividly, actually, although it was a while ago, where it was really important to highlight how addressing elder abuse doesn't just involve, providing information to the senior or the elder, but also involves a responsibility and accountability of the entire community. So in this, in what we have here, the bottom text says, a strong support system is important. Family members, caregivers, friends, and community members can stay involved to prevent elder abuse. So when I think about that, and when I think about the last question I have here about how do we support current and future generations, that often does come with, being able to highlight and bring awareness to the elder abuse, to the abuse that is happening within communities. And the other thing too is that I guess the other context of how this, I guess how I'm even here today was that I attended a conference at McMaster University a couple years ago, pre-pandemic, and there I met a person from Six Nations community. The name has escaped me right now. It's also 6 p.m. So maybe that's why. But I remember during this conversation, I was expressing how, and this was also related to one of the conversations I've had with a Mohawk doctor that I communicate with at the Waakbaness Institute for Indigenous Health. And they mentioned how, abuse does happen within communities, and, being able to approach, and I think, being able to approach that person at that conference, I felt was kind of a sign. And when approaching them, I did mention that, abuse does happen within, non-Indigenous communities right now. And, I wonder if this is something that happens within your community. And as a matter of fact, that conversation led me to a number of relationships that person got me connected with, and to where I am here today, and noticing that abuse and neglect can take part in multiple forms and within multiple communities, and that there is a need to continue creating strong support systems for our current and future generations. A little bit more about the objectives and of this project includes raising awareness, as I mentioned earlier, also providing the most up-to-date information and resources, as well as part of the research or the exploration side is that we want to be able to gather data on the effectiveness of workshops for future policy implications, and more specifically on, if we were to host a workshop on elder abuse prevention, would that lead to changes in knowledge, confidence, attitudes, and behaviors? But also on the flip side of the facilitators who would be delivering these workshops, who will be seniors themselves, will there be any changes in the skills or their own knowledge as well? So kind of seeing, the benefits on both ends of the workshop. And at the end, to also support self-advocacy and community members to speak up about these situations. And here's also some of the design and methods. And this is taking a community-based approach. And, I think this is part of what has been currently done so far, and the fact and the idea that I have been engaging with my community partner at Six Nations Health Services. And I think this also includes being able to talk to them about the design, the recruitment and delivery, and the implications of what this data will bring today, and also respecting the principles of OCAP, or ownership, control, access, and possession. So, and also just being mindful of time. I think one of the examples of how we're going to actually implement OCAP is really having that collaboration, and what specific questions are we going to ask, but also making sure that at the end of the day that this information is given back to the partners at Six Nations Health Services in a way that they can, for instance, I did notice that there's some media on this line as well. I'm wondering if that would even be of interest to community, and to deliver and share that knowledge in that sense. But also moving on, in terms of some of the methods, we do have a number of online surveys. We're also considering, virtual and face-to-face interviews and tabletop exercises with case studies, depending on the situation with COVID and public health restrictions. We also do have funds on the side to provide an honorarium for the facilitator. So that would be to as a way to show respect and for their time and knowledge in their participation, as well as a small gift as a token of appreciation. And these are also some of the guiding principles that we have laid out, and being able to engage, especially between my team as well as our partners, being able to engage with respect, relevance, reciprocity, responsibility, as well as I would say the overall statement of nothing about us without us, which also relates to what I was saying earlier about OCAP, and making sure that the community has ownership as well as possession, the physical possession of that data and information that we're gathering. We have also talked about some potential risks and benefits. And I think one key thing would be like, how do we minimize the risk while maximizing the benefits? And I would say part of that would require some ongoing communication. I think there are some risks beyond COVID that we often have to take into consideration as well. Because of the topic itself of elder abuse prevention and dementia, we do see that potential risks include a sense of emotional or mental distress. as well as a potential risk of personal information, because maybe sometimes this information may not want to be shared with certain organizations or whatnot. There's also a potential risk of social risks in terms of, what is that status and what are those relationships within community after sharing the fact that someone may have experienced abuse or neglect. But we also do see some potential benefits as a result of this project, which includes an increased awareness and confidence in being able to talk about elder abuse prevention, as well as enhanced knowledge of the local resources, because as part of this project, we're also developing an additional infographic that can be more beneficial and tailored to community needs and local resources, as well as improved relationships and support systems to really understand that when it comes to addressing elder abuse prevention, that it's not a responsibility of just one person, but it is the responsibility of an entire system. And how do we improve those relationships and have a increased understanding across those relationships to develop a stronger community. I've reached the end of my presentation. I've also realized I forgot to mention that I'm a research officer at the National Initiative for the Care of the Elderly, but I do want to thank everyone for their time, and I do apologize for going a little bit over time.
That's quite okay. Thank you, Nyawa, so much, Sharon, for walking us through your presentation. At this point in time, I'll look for any questions for Sharon. I'll open the floor for any Q&As. I see Wendy has her hand raised. Over to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for the presentation. It was a great presentation. Well done, well laid out. When I look at it, though, you referenced partner several times. Who is your partner, and are they joining us this evening? Because when we talk about nothing about us without us, and we talk about partnerships, then that usually means joint and equal play. So is it someone from one of our departments? So are we doing this as well? So that's one question. And the other question is, when we get into dementia, I mean, these are important topics, huge topics, and a number of people in the community that I know, that I'm aware of, going through this with family members and whatnot, past and present. But when you get into elder abuse too, then what happens once you start getting into that process? Because there's legal things as well in terms of the law in policing and other pieces of it. So what's in place once you tap into that? Because you can't just identify it and then leave it. So what happens? And I mean, there's impacts, right? Families and so on. So what happens?
I'll answer the first question first. So my partner is, I'm wondering if I can, I think I should be able to say their name because they signed the letter too, but they are Elisa Smith that works at Six Nations Health Services. I did send them the invitation for today, but I think because of the short time span, I'm not sure if they're able to attend right now. I'm wondering if they're actually, tuning in from the live end. I am actually talking with them tomorrow morning too, just to see if we can get things figured out, as well as part of this project, and see if there are any next steps after today's call. In terms of the second part, when it comes to the legal side of it, and as you're talking about, the issues that arise out of elder abuse as well as dementia is very complex. I'll say what's a part of the scope of this project right now is that we've identified the need to create space to talk about the issue first. But Wendy, I do appreciate your concern about the legal aspect too, because I'm thinking that if that would be a part of, if that would be more beneficial as a part of this workshop, perhaps that's something we can integrate as well. But at the moment, with what's within the scope of this project is to raise awareness about the project and being able to identify, for instance, the signs and the indicators, as well as some local resources and what people can do in developing a safety plan, as well as what people in community can do into being able to communicate with someone who may be living with dementia and also potentially experiencing elder abuse and neglect. As some of their options. And I would also be happy to share with you maybe some of the content of that workshop itself, because this workshop content has been developed, but it's as a framework, and there is always room for changes is what I want to say.
If I can just follow up, sorry.
Sure, go for it, Wendy.
So my when I look at this, when I go through your presentation, many partners listed, but I do see that you're with the University of Toronto. So I assume this is grant-based. So you received a grant to do this work. It's a research project. So does that mean, since it's a person from our department, essentially one of our employees, is this a joint grant application so that health services is getting a portion of the grant funding as well to do this work?
I'll provide some clarification there. So I guess becomes a little complex because I have two roles actually. My relationship to the nonprofit. So this is a nonprofit actually, the National Initiative for the Care of the Elderly. The grant is from the Government of Canada for New Horizons. That grant was actually received I think it was I would say just before COVID hit, I would say. So that funding is there, and as part of what that project looks like is that we actually have facilitators, like individual facilitators from different parts of the country, either reach out to us or we reach out to them into co-developing that workshop together. So I'll say the short answer is that I would say Six Nations Health Services is not receiving a funding alone, but the facilitator will be. And I believe that was the agreement that I've discussed with Lisa, as well as I think she escalated that to one of her managers as well. But we can definitely talk more about that, because I think those are really important concerns, and I do understand where you're coming from in terms of being able to provide funding for the organization as a whole, especially if they are taking part in that recruitment. Is that what I'm understanding?
For me, every time I hear partner, and if we're a partner, that means equal contributions, right? So either we're a partner in the full scope of things or we're not. If you just need somebody to support because you want to come into the community to do the work, then let's call it something else rather than partner. So that just for clarity, so that it's understood. But if there is funding to do this work and it is a true partnership, then that's fantastic too. And that has nothing to do with the work, but I think how it's introduced to the community is really important.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate that, and that language is important.
Thank you, Wendy and Sharon, for that. Are there any further questions or comments for Sharon?
It's Melba.
Sure, go ahead, Melba.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I think this is very interesting because a lot of the information that you have is so very true. And there's a lot of secrets when it comes to elder abuse, especially when it's in the family. And I like the part where you're certainly utilizing the elders. Sometimes we think of them as not being capable, as we think of young children at times, they're not capable, where they are capable of facilitating and actively taking part. So I like those opportunities that are going to be given to elders. And I also like the follow-up too that's going to happen 3 months later. So I think they're going to learn a few things about how we at times approach friends for help. Well, when sometimes that's not the most ideal way to do that, because I think some of the people that are in the community, in the services, certainly can help in various ways. So they can help themselves, but they can also reach out for others to help. They do not realize at times that it's not the best way to go, because I think the advice there is not always in order for what they need. So that's my comment. It sounds like a good program.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna take some notes of this down. I should have done that earlier.
Okay, thank you, Nyala, Melba. Are there any further questions or comments for Sharon? Okay, seeing or hearing none, there is a recommendation on our agenda. Oh, sorry, Michelle.
Hi. And thanks, Sharon. And I do apologize. I wasn't at the January ethics meeting, hence why it's been moved to full council, because none of us were there actually to bring forward your application. But I do want to, and I think this is more for full council, is we really need to look at ethics, because again, Wendy makes a really good point. We continue to be researched on. I don't know that it is a partnership. So what is the benefit to our community? And I don't mean it as a monetary benefit. I mean, that is always helpful, because we hear where we are always lacking. So I think as we move forward, we need to really be cognizant of what our community is actually benefiting from the research. So I would, encourage our ethics committee to sit down and have that dialogue, because, or maybe it is full council that has to have that dialogue, because we really need to shift how, who's coming in to do research on us. Maybe I would hope they're doing it with us, but time and time again, it is on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. And I think, in fact, that's a great point to have that discussion. Just because even for me too, and again, nothing specifically to you, Sharon, but in relation just to the process itself, in terms of just exactly what Michelle is speaking of, in wanting to, a lot of these research applications and so forth, really dig deep and really delve into the issue itself, whatever they're researching primarily on. But for me, it's that follow-up piece too. In that we can't just see research just sit on a shelf as well as, and I do hear Michelle's concern on those pieces, of the, us being researched on, what is that community benefit for, in those pieces. So, I think this will definitely, if we can make note, Tammy, Christopher, those on the line, to again, have a more broader discussion when it comes to the ethics process. And that we can all be on the same page. That way we know exactly when applications are coming through, exactly what's what's going to be presented and how it's going to, like Michelle says, ultimately benefit community. Audrey?
Thank you. I thought the presentation, Sharon, was very, very well done. I think a lot of us have seen this in the community, elder abuse, whether it's financial, emotional, whatever type of ways being done, it's being done to our people. And we do have to stand up. So I think bringing this issue to us at this time now is a really good thing. So what it does is what I expect it to do is, if you conduct your surveys and once you get all your data together and you present it, it becomes property of Six Nations as well. So that we get then in turn can use that data, and we have to determine how we're going to help our seniors or whoever else is being abused in this territory. So we have to stop the abuse. Doesn't matter what age it is, but you're focusing on elder abuse. So we have to get a plan in place for that. And that obviously will involve the police and legal, and as well as community based, so that we can try and stop it. And if the people, you might even find that people are telling their family members more, and that some of the stuff is stopped through families getting together. And maybe that may be one answer for you. So thank you very much. And I will move that we accept her proposal. Yeah. Well,
Okay, thank you so much, Audrey, for your comments. Do agree wholeheartedly with them. I do have a motion on the floor to accept, again, recommendation 4.1 moved by Audrey. Is there a seconder? Seconder to the motion?
I'll move.
I'll move a second. Yeah, I
Okay,
haven't been
thank
at
you,
the meetings either lately. Yeah, I've been
thank you.
tied up with other meeting that's at the same time, so I'm not familiar with the presentation only today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melba. So that's seconded by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments?
Make a comment?
Sure.
I just want to, I want to thank, I think it was Melba, Audrey, and Michelle who provide, and Wendy as well, who all provided some really good insight. And I do want to thank you wholeheartedly, because I think I think research ethics is a really important part of it. And I do apologize if anything in terms of language or things I've used came off in a inappropriate way. And I'm happy that this conversation is starting, and it is something I'm going to keep in mind. But sorry, Chief Mark.
All good, and really appreciate it as well, Sharon. Your presentation was done quite well. And again, I think, as noted, it's time to have these conversations, as our elders, knowledge keepers, holders. They mean a lot to us in our community, and so we want to be able to protect them in every possible way. So appreciate exactly what this work's going to do. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to the motion? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Is there a motion to waive second reading?
I'll move, Audrey.
Moved by
Melba.
Audrey, second by Melba, to waive second reading on the previous motion. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Well, again, Sharon, wanted to say huge nyawa for coming and joining us this evening and presenting to us. Do look forward to the next steps on this initiative and project, and wish you all the best. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good evening.
You as well. Take care. Okay, Councilman, continue just moving right along with the agenda here. Number 5 on our agenda is the adoption of the council minutes of April 13th.
I'll move.
Moved by Michelle, seconder.
I'll second it, Melba.
Second by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to the minutes? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. I'll move now to recommendations from the Building and Infrastructure Committee. Recommendation 6.1. Just really quickly, I'll read it really fast. If there's any further questions or comments, it reads that the Building and Infrastructure Committee recommends to the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council to approve the 21-22 First Nations Infrastructure Investment Plan core-based funding allocations in the total amount of $1,281,620 for submission to Indigenous Services Canada. It's broken down in multiple sectors: $300,000 for administration, $321 for public works, $90,000 for fire, $218 parks and rec, $250 for environment, and $101 for education, making it the total of the 1.2. Is there any further questions, comments, or rather even motion, mover and seconder? Comments, questions, Wendy?
So my question is, why are we doing 21-22 when that year has passed? We're approving that budget allocation. And does this take into account the topic that we met on, I can't remember, it was in camera or open, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but in terms of the schools, O&M.
Okay, so I believe that's separate, but we'll talk on this piece. I believe Michael's on the line as well to further explain.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So this is right from Indigenous Services Canada as far as their allocation. I don't know. I honestly don't know why they refer it as the old year funding as in 21-22, but it is funding for us to spend in 2022-23. And it's on the allocations actually on the very last page of the package or the item, and it's on the far right column, and that's how they break down the funding. There's a portion there that's set up for education, 101,933. That's allocated directly to them, and the rest is for council departments to divvy up to their needs based on I guess collaboration with Darren and Anna Cecile, so that we can whittle down to the actual amount we're allocated.
Follow up, Wendy?
So when I read the briefing note, if I'm looking at the correct briefing note for that infrastructure investment plan, it does talk about O&M.
Well, just if I can comment on that piece really quickly, I know it was just brought up just yesterday, and which is why we wanted to further at least have that conversation specifically one-on-one with ISC. So that's why that letter just went out this afternoon. So if there's still, will be, I guess, a part of the normal process in which we've already engaged in doing so. However, we're looking to change that process to further address our concerns on that piece.
So should we note that in the motion? We approve it. I mean, it's last year's for this year, but approve it with a notation that further work is being done on that item. I don't know, something just to reference it.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think we could definitely include that notation within the motion itself, just in terms of like you say, the further work happening on the O&M piece with the federal schools. So if that's okay to include that in the motion, I will look to include that and look for a mover and seconder if there are any further questions or comments. Moved by Wendy, second by Audrey. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, so just that one, Brooke, just to note that one addition to the motion, and I can work with you again just to make sure that it's clear. And so it's been moved and seconded. There are no further questions or comments. I'll go to a vote. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Just wanted to check in with Mike really quickly. Mike, is there a need to a second reading waive on this piece?
Yes, please, if you could.
Okay, looking to a motion to waive second reading on the previous motion, moved by Wendy, seconder.
Audrey.
Second by Audrey to waive second reading. All in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. And just FYI, Mike and council, that letter has since went out this afternoon in relation to the O&M. So we'll look to that follow-up pieces and to keep you included in that.
Yeah.
Okay, council. All right, thanks. Thanks, Mike. Have a good evening. I'm going to continue just moving right along the agenda here, council. Our next piece is under scheduling. So the first one we have is in relation to travel with the Gaming Commission in their exploratory discussions with Kahnawake. I would like to add Councillor Sherry Lynn Hill Pierce to that motion to travel to the KGC meeting in Kahnawake on May 27th all day, which will be also touring their facility. This is all part of our due diligence work that we're trying to then now package to come back to council to make a decision. And this will be in support with the Gaming Commission itself. So looking to motion for that to happen. Questions, comments, Wendy?
So just a question, because I received a call for gaming that they're changing their structure to include both council reps. So I don't know if that carries over to this. So I don't know what's happening with it, but just raising that.
Yeah, thank you. To be honest, I was actually going to possibly even look to see if you're interested, Wendy, to attend this as well, to get briefed up on some of the pieces in which we're trying to move to the portfolio structure as well in economic development type. So not sure if you're interested, but I did, Sherry Lynn did also flag your name to this piece if you are interested in attending this with us. This would be again to further support the Gaming Commission's work, and again, the due diligence and exploratory to bring it back to full council for final decision once we have a full package of all the information.
If I can be added, and then I'll check scheduling, and then I'll let your office know one way or the other, but it's covered. And
sure, that would be great. So if we can look to a motion then for myself as well as Councillor Sherry Lynn Hill Pierce and Wendy Johnson to travel to again KGC meeting in Kahnawake, Quebec on May 27th, again happening all day. Is there a mover to that effect?
Move, Chief.
I'll move it, Melba.
Okay, thank you. It's moved by Nathan, seconded by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments? And Wendy, no problem. If you could just let us know on your side of things with scheduling, and we'll confirm as soon as possible. Okay, that being said, then all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing on motion is carried. I'm going to wait to hold up on second reading until after all of our scheduling events. So as we're now shifting in, as we can all see, which is somewhat of a good thing. It's nice to get off of Zoom, in which I'll also note when we'll be back into our own chambers very soon. But I want to just keep going down the list here of scheduling. The next piece that I'll need assistance with is this is for myself for May 15th, the 75th Jubilee of the Polish Association of Canada. You'll see the list here of who are all invited. I don't plan to attend the full day, but rather the museum part of things, which is from the 1 to 5. So I am looking for a motion to attend as a political representative of Six Nations to this event just in Brantford, Ontario. Is there a motion for me to attend the Jubilee?
I'll move, Mark.
May 15th.
Audrey.
Moved by Audrey, second by Michelle. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. These other pieces, the next two items under scheduling is I'll need some assistance from one of our counselors who are able to assist. The first one is in relation to representative. We had an invitation as Capital Power is a sponsor of the upcoming Inspire Awards, which is happening in Ottawa Thursday, May 12th. I think it's always been a fantastic event for networking and so forth, and being able to, have the opportunity to discuss, common topics and things like that. So Capital Power has graciously sent an invitation for myself or a political rep. Unfortunately, I will not be able to, as I have conflicting events happening during this time. So I am looking to see if anyone on council is interested to take a spot and sit with Capital Power at the Inspire event on May 12th in Ottawa.
Mark, it's Melba. I understand. Mark? Yeah, I understand there's 2 spots there. Is that right?
I just want to clarify. Sorry if I can. Tammy, can you clarify? Is it 1 or 2 spots?
I understood it as 1 spot, but I can confirm tomorrow if you do want to designate 2.
Okay, no problem. So we have no problem if 2 counselors are interested. We can still be able to make sure that we all get there. Is there any interest from counselors? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we will forward back on to Capital Power again, just graciously thanking them for the invitation. But at this point in time, we will have no representatives for the Inspire Awards at their table, but again, send our, most gratitude to them. So thanks, Council, for that one. The next one is political representatives to attend the Hike for Hospice opening ceremonies in Brantford on May 15th. Again, I would attend this event, but I will be at another event during the time. And so I have conflicting schedules. So I am looking for some assistance from a counselor to attend. You'll see the email in your briefing packages as well in terms of what all they are requesting. Simply, it's our presence and support, and will be acknowledged during the opening ceremonies. Yeah, you're not they're not looking to or required to bring greetings. Just your attendance is more than enough, and it will begin at 1 p.m. again on May 15th. Is there any takers to assist?
It's Melba. I'll volunteer for that one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Melba. Is there a motion for Melba to attend this event as the political representative for Six Nations to attend the Hike for Hospice opening ceremonies on May 15th? Is there a mover to that?
I'll move, Audrey.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. Is there a seconder?
I'll second, Shirley.
Seconded by Sherry Lynn. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, Council, thank you so much. As we get into, I guess, more or less shifting into more in-person events, I will look to counselors for additional assistance. I know, again, thank you, Nathan, for the last event that we both had the same timing. You went over to Gagnos, I went up to Brantford for the police. So there's going to come times where we'll need extra bodies to have and make sure our presence is there, and greetings at times is there as well. Wendy, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, sorry, just going back to Inspire, can Tammy or someone get back to us? Are there any recipients from Six Nations?
I don't believe so, but again, yes, I'll get Tammy to confirm to go back with us on that piece. Okay, just before I do move on to the next item, I will look to a motion to waive second reading on all the previous scheduling motions. Is there a mover to that effect? Moved by Wendy, seconder.
Second.
Second, Melba.
Second by Nathan, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, council, thank you for those scheduling, and as well for those assisting in some of these events. Again, as we move towards more events happening in person, I will definitely be leaning on council to assist me in making sure that our presence as Six Nations are at these events. So nyama for that. The next item on the agenda, council, is in relation to a letter that I received. I believe it's an open letter to our community that I wanted to put on the agenda. I know it's Kennedy who had written the letter, and I'm going to read it openly. And as well, I want to look to discussions and next steps and really action, because we're all seeing it and we're all part of this community. And really, she's looking for, action from leadership, and I think really community in general, in that we all have a role to play in terms of, making everyone feel safe within our territory. So I'm going to read this letter. I know it was addressed both to obviously community leaders, myself, the council, and to whom else, and other concerned. She did reach out both to Helen, I believe, Councillor Helen, as well as myself, and both Helen and I have responded since then. But I thought that I would still put this on the agenda because I think it's a very important topic and something that council needs to discuss. I think even in addition to what we heard earlier on in relation to the elder abuse presentation, I think there's just so many things that I think are all interconnected that we need to address once and for all. So I'm going to read her letter. Again, I do apologize. She does have a traditional name that I don't want to mess up, so I'll just refer to her English name as Kennedy. Scan out community leaders, Band Council Chief Hill, and to whom else it may concern. I am a young woman that has grown up on the Six Nations Reserve, and I'm reaching out in concern of the state our community is in. I have become increasingly more concerned for the well-being and safety for myself, my family, friends, and especially the younger generations growing up. These past few years, I have had young friends and acquaintances pass away from various tragedies. I think everyone in this community has experienced some kind of tragedy, and many of these tragedies, I believe, are preventable. Gun violence and drug abuse have become rampant, and it feels like nothing is being done. Our community is caught in a chokehold of fear and violence, and it saddens me to see news of the constant deaths that seem to occur. It feels like every day I wake up and see more depressing news of our people committing harm and crime towards each other. My family experienced a break-in a few years ago, and this event has affected us all still to this day. There are nights when I have trouble falling asleep, afraid of the noises outside of my home, wondering what or who could be out there. This fear is constantly in the back of our minds, and no person should have to live in fear in their own community, let alone their own homes. As a young Indigenous woman, I'm very well aware of the high rates of violence against women that look like me, which makes me live my life with that anxiety in the back of my mind. Whenever I see another woman experiencing violence, I can't help but be afraid for my own life. The recent attack of Autumn Martin has shaken my spirit, and the lack of justice and leadership response has saddened me deeply. Knowing that such crime could be committed in my community disappoints me and has spread doubt and loneliness amongst women. It has manifested fear and doubt within me, and I do not believe the individuals responsible should be walking freely within our territory. This sends a message to others that this type of behavior is acceptable and they are able to get away with such crimes. Autumn and every woman deserves to feel safe and supported within the community. In our culture, we are taught that women are life givers and are sacred. But how are we to believe that when there's constant news of the community letting our women down? How are we supposed to teach the young Haudenosaunee boys and girls that violence is not our way when we are showing them that they can get away with it? Our community is sick and more must be done to improve it. I am calling upon the people who are supposed to be in charge to stand up against this violence, and I call upon you to create change and lead our people into a better life. Take our teachings and make them a part of our day-to-day lives. Please end the violence and sickness in our home and create safety for the new generations. Nyawa. So I wanted to put this on the agenda, Council, because again, it's obviously been weighing heavily on my heart and mind and soul. I'm sure much like each of yous, we see what's happening most recently, even with the destruction of property, people, theft, the high rates of crime and violence in our community, the bullying issues in our schools and as adults, the lateral violence, you know, the list goes on. And I think I responded back to Kennedy on this letter and saying that I'm prepared to do whatever we got to do, and even for myself, to help on the everyday change. I know we all have individual changes to make. We have a collective change to make, but we all have to recognize that our community each has a role to play in what this change looks like and how this action is going to actually be fulfilled. And so that's something that, again, I wanted to put on the council agenda and bring this forward. Again, it was dated April 14th because she's right. You know, our young people are suffering and they're watching. I have many nieces and nephews, cousins, and much like all of us family, that is seeing all of this happen as well, right in front of our eyes. I don't want to necessarily put blame or point fingers, but how can we actually start to have real conversations and be able to foster safe environments to have these conversations without having targets on our backs constantly? You know, it's time. And I know even with Autumn's family, I've yet to reach out to the Martin family, because they're entirely right as well. There comes a point in time where political differences need to be set aside, and we have to focus on actually what's happening to our community and what's happening to our young people. What's happening? Why is there so much? And obviously, we know with the hopefully praying that we're shifting into an endemic in this pandemic. You know, the impacts that it's had on our mental health and wellness. It's tough. It's been a really tough 2 years surviving this pandemic alone, yet alone now packing it with all of the other issues that we've seen pre-COVID. So, I've offered some pieces, and again, I want to still have a full-on conversation with Kennedy and others to start to say what can we do now? What can we help to change the now and be able to foster these types of environments to talk about these really important issues. Again, there's so much happening in our territory, and it is a sad state. It is a sad state. I remember talking to others in the past where, there was a point in time where people didn't even have to lock their doors, in our community. Now it's security cameras, it's gates, it's fences, it's everything to protect their own families from what's happening on our territory. There's a number of things that I think are contributors, that are factors of all of this, but I think it's time that we have to come up with an action plan, whether that's still, again, some sort of a campaign, a community task force. It's got to be community driven. I don't think, again, politics, whether it's Confederacy, whether it's the elected system, we all live here. So I'm siding with these young people who are coming forward to say, what else can we do? And I really just wanted to have a dialogue and conversation in an open forum with community, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to actually make real change and to commit to what that looks like. So I thought, again, I know it's a heavy topic. That's why we wanted to put it on as last of the agenda. I know, again, obviously we want to leave on a good note and want to leave to where community actually sees and can get some action on what our steps are going to be as leadership to start to focus in on how we're going to create a safer community for everybody. And it's going to take us all. So I open the floor up for questions. I open the floor up for dialogue, and I'll first begin with Nathan.
Thanks, Chief, and definitely thank Kennedy for the letter and her leadership, because that's what I see in her making that statement, is that initial leadership for the community to step up in terms of this issue. And like her and like everyone else on this council, this is one issue that really has caused me to lose sleep over the last little while. Well, not even only last little while, over the years. Because I see it flare up and it comes down and it flares up, but it's been at an all-time high over the last little while. And community knows I'm the rep on the police commission, and that police commission, we had our meeting last week. This is top of mind and top of discussions there too, but it's also that acknowledgement, and I made the statement that it's just not a policing issue alone. They play a huge role, definitely going forward. And I like your comments of taking that community-wide approach on this particular topic, because it's going to take all of us going forward. However, not to let the police off the hook, they play an important role going forward in this, and how they conduct themselves, and utilizing the tools that they have within them, which are very limited, let's be honest. The tools that they have, and come forward with kind of what it is that we need to. But I'm taking your comments, Chief, and thinking that we need to pull everyone together. And not really break down these silos, because that's another kind of tool that's preventing us from not necessarily coming forward with or not having a safe place to live. That's essentially what folks are asking for. It's when I look at this particular issue, and I think back to the crux of it. What I feel is there's a lot as it relates to organized crime, drugs, gangs, and guns that we have going on within our community. And having a strategy just geared on that hasn't been working. I think what we need to do is take that community approach and unpack all of those issues within drugs, within the gangs, within the violence, and within the organized crime that is happening within our community, and bring our people together. Because what I found is when we come together, we come up with the best solutions for the community going forward. So I think it's going to be so vitally important that not only the key contributors to this strategy, but also the community come out in terms of looking and unpacking the toolbox that we all possess, and coming up with a really robust strategy on this. Because at the end of the day, I want to at least have that kind of notice to the community that the council is talking about this, the Six Nations Police Commission is talking about this, all the agencies that work for the community have this at top of mind. And for me, the only way to action that is to bring us all together and come up with a strategy for this going forward. Very simple strategy, one that we can employ, and really put in place what tools we need to kind of give to the Six Nations Police and our agencies, so that they have the best resources to be able to tackle this issue head on. I don't think we shy away from it. I think we deal with this head on going forward. So I'll leave my comments there, looking forward to others, but also want to contribute to the conversation.
Appreciate your comments, Nathan. Again, you know, I totally agree. We got to do it from a wholesome, really approach. And it's like I say back to my earlier comments of it's going to take us all, you know, to be able to, you know, get back and further to our own, you know, she's mentioned it as well, of our own language and culture, and being able to, you know, really, you know, be able to, again, have that groundedness of who we are as a people, and that this is not our ways of how we treat our own, or people in general. And I think that's something that, you know, we have to, again, I'll make it a point for the remaining of this term that we can start to do the work and, like you say, make these steps towards positive action, because it's been festering for years. And I think it's just time. It's time that everybody put their differences aside and let's focus on our young ones. Let's focus on what we have to do to create this safety and to make sure that it happens and it's continuing for the years and it's not falling off the tracks for, you know, just one and done type of deal. So again, do appreciate all of your comments, and I see a number of hands being raised. I'll go over to Audrey next.
Thanks, Mark. And I agree with my fellow councillor Nathan Wright. I'd like to take a couple of steps further in that this was brought up a couple of weeks ago when Autumn's story first broke in one of the local papers. And I brought it to council then, and I asked that we form a committee. I'm still of the opinion that we form a committee with people on there who are interested, maybe people with experienced violence, the key stakeholders on council and who are on our programs. But then they in turn take that committee and they try to find out and bring in the community's opinions and views. And I think we have to go into the schools, and I think we have to listen to those little ones. The kids who are being bullied on the playgrounds now, what is it they're experiencing? Why are they afraid to tell? If they do tell, then what happens? What's the follow-up? The policies are there, and I've been an educator for 42 years. And I know that everyone is doing their best job, but it's a whole community. It's the families we have to work with. It's the elders, it's grandparents, it's everyone, but it's the kids. That's where we're going to get our most productive. We can teach our kids those problem-solving skills, how to communicate well, all those things as they grow up, they're able to be more resilient. And I think we have to involve our educators. Like we have highly skilled educators, and we have such wonderful programs on Six Nations. And our Justice Department also has to be a part of this, as well as the police. Everybody has a role to play, but I think the sooner that we start some form of a committee to get going, to get the opinions of our community, the better. And I think social media, there has to be a social media blitz. There has to be, like, share it in, put your signs up. When we say children are our finest, and we're stingy of them, then we should be behaving that way. And we should be conducting and modeling ourselves so that our kids see us, they see how we handle problems, and they see how we interact with people. And it's hopefully it's more positive. But yeah, I agree. We have to do something because the violence has increased. And together as a community, I think we can undo some of those harms and prevent a preventative approach, I guess, to it. So now.
Thank you, Nyawa, Audrey, for your comments. And again, you know, do agree with them. And just really quickly, I'll just mention I had a good conversation this morning with Travis Anderson, Director of Federal Schools, on this piece of, you know, further leadership within the schools, because we know bullying has been an issue for many years. And I think that's why I wanted to look to see at, you know, not just what's happening in our community of violence and abuse and things like that, but also what's happening in the schools, as it's all part of our community, which I refer to as that wholesome approach. And again, you know, to the Martin family, for what Autumn endured, you know, it's horrible, and it should never have happened. And I think that's something that again, our office will be reaching out to them, to one, to again have their advice on some of the action that can be taken, but even a step further of, what do we do in the now to help to make sure that that doesn't happen to another young woman in this community. And I think that's something that, again, has been weighing heavily on our minds. And so, want to be able to make that change, but we got to do it together. And that's the only thing that I think at this point in time, we need action. Michelle.
Thanks, Chief. And I want to start with thanking Kennedy for her well-written letter. And again, Nathan said it, her leadership. When I read it, I thought, here's our generation coming up, and they're speaking and they're using their voice. And so we need more people to do that and take action. And actually, I'm glad to hear that you're talking with the director of schools, because I had a call today from a father whose child is being bullied at school, and the daughter has been removed from school. And so to me, we need to action. I think we've chatted way too long. Why is it that it seems when individuals are being bullied, or they're the victims, I don't like that word, but they always have to do the extra work, right? And so to me, this is multifaceted. There's a lot of trauma that's happened in our community. I'm not ignoring that whatsoever. We need to deal with that trauma. And in doing that, we really need to look at how we operate. We need to be able to actionize and be there for community. If things are happening after hours, we really need to look at being there, supporting them, not just giving them a card and say, call me. We really need to take this seriously. And until we can really, I will say, revamp how we work, I think we are just contributing to the issue. So I think it's multifaceted. We have to really look at how we're doing prevention and intervention to our entire community. And I do really want to focus on the schools, because that's a second call in less than a month in regards to two really serious bullying issues that have happened within our schools.
Thanks, Michelle, for your input as well. I think just really quickly as well to that piece of the conversation with the director of federal schools is looking at exactly what you're talking about. In fact, I think there's also been champions that can assist us, and I think even with the health was doing something in relation to like influencers. We have a lot of role models in this community, right? From athletes to educators to the artists, culinary, like the list goes on. We have a lot of role models, and I think we need to utilize as many role models as possible to go back to that sense of, again, whether it be a community campaign or I don't know, but to start to, again, put this as a constant conversation happening within our community so that we can actually start to, like you say, make that real change, because we can't sit here and talk about it. There's people suffering, especially our young people. And I think that's something that, again, I want to as well, just hats off to Kennedy for, how it's difficult. It's challenging to talk in front of our community on anything, yet alone this topic. Our community isn't the nicest at times either. And it comes from all of us. And that's where I feel like, again, we have to, like, as mentioned, look at ourselves and how we are dealing with each other and things like that, because we have a lot of work to do, and our young people are watching. I have a couple of other speakers. Wendy, I have next, and then over to Sherry Lynn.
Thanks, Mark, and certainly agree and send Nyawa to Kennedy for writing the letter and for speaking up. And I think we have to empower community to do it more. That voice is important, and this has to happen. That's how we'll get to change. But there's so much that comes to mind with this, and it's a huge topic. Really happy to hear Nathan speak as one of our reps on the police commission. Very happy that he's speaking up on this issue, because it's accountability. So thank you, Nathan. But this takes me back to, and I'm going to go bigger in scope. You know, this country, communities across Canada spoke loudly about the need for an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women in this country. And we wanted an inquiry because we wanted to stop the violence, the hurt and harm against women in this country. You know, Haudenosaunee women, all Indigenous women across the country. You know, that report was done, all of that work was done, and we hammered that there has to be action associated with this and hold people accountable, you know, hold law enforcement accountable, every agency. You know, we know that there's trauma, we know that there's harms and there's hurt from residential schools. We have all of this compounded, but missing and murdered Indigenous women, you know, this isn't far from that. I mean, this was a good attempt. I mean, I think we've all seen the, you know, the social media on this. It's, the family's been very open about it and sharing what happened. And it is just unfathomable, you know, as a parent, as a woman, that something like that could occur in this community. And for me, I think one of the most, you know, there's many things, but the devastation that people watched, you know, it just the degree. And if that happened outside of our territory, we would be stopping at nothing to call for action to have something done in that. If that happened, we should be doing the same thing in this community. I don't know the people, I don't know the involvement, and we can't get involved in investigation, but I'll leave that there. That's what we called for in that inquiry. You know, moving forward, we need to find a mechanism to empower people, youth, but everyone. We talk about the schools. You know, for me, I speak frankly, we have to take blinders off. There's not one thing. So it's not a blame. It's not just working with kids. It's not just working with parents. Our systems and our structures in this community are failing kids. We talk about that. We raise those issues. And it doesn't mean that there are not good people doing good work in programs, in services, in schools, because there are exceptional people, but there are also bullies in our own systems, right? I mean, we point fingers all the time. We do that. But how do we help kids? How do we support kids? And how do we support families so that their voice matters, so that we have, you know, avenues open and available, so that if they speak up, it means something. Because people won't speak up because they say, well, it doesn't matter, nothing's going to happen. And we have to change that. You know, whether it be colonial thinking, whatever that is. You know, I know Michelle's talked numerous times about reconciliation in our own community. When will we do that? When will we talk about the hurts and the harms in our own community and our own history and address that and what it means to us? You know, we have to stop victim blaming, because we do that well also. You know, and we have to change the attitudes and the mindsets that things are acceptable, because nowhere is this acceptable. So, you know, however we empower that, I agree with Michelle. We talk a lot. We need action. Like, you know, I don't want to disagree with colleagues, but I think we need to move to action. We know what the issues are. We know what the directions are, and, you know, work with families that have experienced this trauma and what's needed moving forward, and get our services and programs on board to do that, because we have a number to work with. But, you know, I think it's, you know, taking the blinders off so we see it all. There's parts for all of us, right? And we have to own it moving forward. So stop there.
Appreciate your input and comments as well, Wendy. You know, I think everyone has touched exactly on a number of pieces, and like you say, it's unfolding and unpacking all of these, which is it's a huge task. We got to make sure that we're you know, looking at the reality of this issue as well, and what all this work is going to entail. And it's not going to be fixed overnight, sadly. I mean, if we had that, a wishful wand and fixing this all, I'm sure we would use it yesterday, you know, years ago. But we got to continue to push forward on the action. And I agree with you. Whatever that action looks like, it's got to start now. Sherry Lynn.
Oops. Yeah. Just quickly, I agree with what everybody has said. I just want to say thank you to Kennedy for for sharing this and bringing it up and having a voice, because I think this is the part that I'm going to say it around the table. This council forgets the community needs to have a voice. And sorry about my voice. And like, that's who we work for. We work for the community. And by giving the community a voice, that helps them to share with us. And like Wendy said, a place to be safe of what's going on in the community, where they can get answers and all the stuff to support them. So I don't want to mention everything else that everybody said, but I totally agree. I'm glad it's on the table. I'm glad we're having it an open, and I'll do whatever I have to do to help, because it's been going on for many, many years, but it has snowballed to a lot of people in our community to be scared. And again, that's not right. That's not who we are. And we need everyone to be together and with a good mind for everybody to be safe. Thanks.
Appreciate that again as well. Thank you, Sherilyn, for your input to this conversation. So what we've been doing as well, because I've been trying to get a jump start on some of these pieces that have been mentioned in relation to whatever a task force or committee, bringing in all of our services and programs, eliminating all silos, looking at the key stakeholders. Obviously, community driven we need to make sure obviously community is driving this. And so what I'm going to suggest is that you leave this back with the chief's office so that we can put together a plan of action, because we see the different programs and services that are already doing this type of work, and as Wendy has noted, there is good work that's happening, and so we need to make sure that we're bringing in all of the good pieces. We're looking to identify the gaps in these services and programs, and as well, and it has to go a lot further than that, which we understand as well, but I want to be able to, at the chief's office, really bring back, a resolution to put to the table in motion, so that we can start to say, this has now been, passed in full council. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to try to build in terms of a strategy, an action plan. But we can't do it ourselves, right? This has to, like, as everybody mentioned, there's so many key stakeholders. So again, if there's any further action that anyone else is recommending at this point in time, by all means, looking for anything at this point so that we can continue to push this item. And I want to continue to keep it on the agendas until, so that we can start to see and track progress of where are we going, where, whether it be through, police side of things, programs and services side of things, leadership side of things, community in general side of things. There's so many moving pieces to this, but it's time that we all come together and figure this out once and for all. Wendy and then Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will add, I mean, I did take note, Mark, that you haven't talked to the family yet, and I assume that you will, but I know that we have programs and services, victim services and other things, but I hope, it's my hope that we can reach out to the family and make sure they have everything they need, because I understand there's surgeries, I understand there's a lot to go through. So let's not make them go through silo processes and have to fight for services and anything that they need moving forward. And not only this family, but any family that's going through trauma like this. We should be just breaking down those barriers ourselves and making sure that they've got that smooth path forward to get what they need.
Appreciate that, and 100% Wendy. And again, we'll be reaching out to the family quite soon. Again, I know it's been a long time coming. Appreciate and if there are apologies for any delay, but this has been definitely heavily on my mind as well in terms of what we got to do. So appreciate that. Nathan?
The only thing I'll add is for my role on the police commission, I think what we could do is have a discussion and look at the investments that we're putting into the police services vis-a-vis the drugs and the organized drug unit. Maybe at as early as next week or towards the end of this week, we can pull all that information together and reconvene on that aspect of things too, because it is one small part of the whole strategy, but it is a big I view that as a big part of that particular strategy. Not to say, I just want to bring the information together, look what we're investing now, see what the needs are, and see if there aren't further investments we can make as it relates to that particular piece there on the drug unit within our community. Because to me, I just see one big, huge facet of the violence that's happening is contributed directly to the organized crime and drug. That's a part of this community as well.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Nathan. So we'll work as diligently as we can at the chief's office, obviously with the support of our staff in the office, to really pull together all these pieces. So my goal is to bring this back at our next meeting. And to really be able to put on the table a resolution, an action. I know we still have to build an action plan and strategy to this, but at least to the points raised of breaking down silos, breaking down all the barriers so that we can bring all key stakeholders to the table and start to, again, really build what this looks like, because it's time for change. And we need change for positive. We've already been through enough with this pandemic, so we need to continue supporting as much as we can each other. So I'll look to any further questions or comments at this point.
It's Melba. Yeah. I really believe this is heavy and emotional for all of us. And how do we return the broom to the door, or attempt to do that? How do we do that? And Nathan mentioned that, and I'm surprised that we haven't mentioned it with each time we talk, is the sickness and addiction in our community. The sickness in many ways, not only trauma. We talk of trauma all the time. And yes, we've been traumatized in many, many ways. I look at banning. Can we start to look at that again? Because people don't belong here if they're going to be part of shooting people, killing people through guns and drugs. We see that off the reserve. They were charged because they were the last one to give the person drugs and they died. So we need to look at this very deeply, the root causes of what we're dealing with here. It's similar to what we're talking about previously with abuse. It's a form of abuse in many, many ways. Those children that go to school, I was just talking to a school teacher today, children that go to school with blanks in their eyes. And the reason why is what they've been subjected to at home. They run out of the house when their parents are continuing to quarrel, and various forms of violence. So it's not only our young people, it's the younger children who can't even speak as well for themselves, not like Kennedy can. So we need to do something. And Mark, you said we need to put our differences aside. Can we do that? Are we healthy enough to do that? Will the Haudenosaunee Chiefs Council, would they come forward and look at what's happening? Can we use our culture? Can we use our medicines? How do we tackle this, that everyone in this community will be part of it, that wishes to be part of it? So I get very concerned too. I lose sleep over this when I have dreams even. Just the other night I had a dream of abuse, of people that I know that are not here anymore. So it's really heavy on my mind what's happening here. So I'm glad that the community will have a voice. I think they need a voice, one mind. As Sherilyn said, a good mind. How do we get back to that? And I think a lot of them need help. A lot of our people need help. Are we going to have an outreach more than we are right now? Are we going to utilize that van? We used it for vaccines. And it was my understanding was the purpose to outreach to people who need extra help. You go to the people. You don't wait for people to die and come to the services and say, can you help me? You do outreach, similar to Brantford. They're having success with what they're doing in Brantford. And Rob Davis certainly can tell you that. They have volunteers. And I know that would be difficult because we have a lot of threats and violence and get off of my property, you have no business. All those kind of things that happen when they want to hide things. So all of this is a form of abuse, sometimes through the entire family that we're dealing with. Not just the elderly, not just the couple that just split up and are accusing each other of abuse and whatever else they do in the court system, but it's rampant. It's very rampant. So I'm glad we're going to come together with the community, and your office is going to take some action and look at the hardcore drugs in this community, which is causing a lot of our violence and deaths and overdoses. We can't look the other way anymore. We can't say, oh, well, I don't know what we can do about it. And that's why we're talking today. What are the strategies that a community and council and the Confederacy can do together to make this community a safer place, is what Kennedy was saying. People are afraid. You lock your door. I locked my door for years because I had 3 break-ins. They're right in my home, right in there. So I've did that for years, which is terrible. So you look around the community and you see all the security cars that are numerous in this community. We steal off of one another. We don't care, and it's because we want that drink. We want that drug. That's number one. And I learned from an addict that you have no conscience. You have no conscience when you're a drug addict or an alcoholic. That is what you want. So we got to get beyond that and help those people. Or if they're not, refuse to be helped, we need to ban them in some manner, whether it's for a year or 6 months or whatever. But I think we should bring the banning, talk about that more, because I think that's necessary. So that's my little spiel. I'm glad that everyone had their say today, and we're moving forward on strategies to make our community safer and within families, within schools. Look what happened to New Credit. How did that happen now? With all the damage to the school. We've had that here. We've had that. So it's just mind-boggling, but we're going to tackle it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nyawa. Melba, you touched on a number of items, and again, this is something that at the end of the day affects and impacts each and every single one of us. So we have to figure this out, and so we're committed to do the work. We're committed to roll our sleeves up and figure this out and be able to. Again, it's going to be tough. It's not saying that this is going to be an easy journey. We have to be able to have these tough conversations and make some tough decisions and actually make that action and implement it. So I'm also glad and thankful for Kennedy in writing this open letter to the community. I know it was in the newspapers, as well as we'll be reaching out further to make sure Autumn's family is that all services and everything is that they need, that they have, is easily accessible and so forth. And again, it goes for all families. We're not just trying to one off and not trying to blame or point fingers or look at this. No, that's what we got to stop doing. We got to stop that because it's not helping the situation. We got to look at what is the value that we could each bring to the overall strategy. So I really appreciate this conversation. Again, in terms of action, I'm going to be bringing this back to the next council meeting so that we can start to, again, build out what this looks like. And we're going to need community. We're going to need everybody to further assist in what that looks like. Sorry, did I hear? Sorry, Hazel, you have the floor.
Oh, sorry, Mark. I've been having a lot of connection problems tonight. I just like to add on to the topic with regard to what this reserve is now going through. I too feel that we all have to get busy and do something. But right now, a lot of us don't know what to do, because with all of the violence that's happening and the lack of care that is being shown to people, like for instance, going back to the girl that was injured in the story in the paper. Like, why would it take 2 men and 2 dogs to beat one small girl up? It doesn't even make any kind of sense at all. Why would somebody want to hurt somebody so bad like that? I think we're going to have to think long and hard about how we're going to attack this. And we can, like there's a lot of drug places. There are a lot of them. And I think one thing that we all have to not be afraid to do is we have to stop being afraid to speak up. And we all need to speak up, because I think people are so afraid of retaliation. Well, if you don't speak up now, you become a victim sooner or later anyway. I think identifying, putting up banners where everybody knows these drug places and there's illegal things happening. Another thing that I think we have to overcome is, like, when anyone sees the OPP come on reserve, they don't come on here until they're called to help. And when you see them, you know there's something serious happening where our police need assistance. So I think if everybody could relax on that matter too, and realize that sometimes our police need help as well with what they're dealing with, because God forbid we don't want anybody hurt. Every person on this reserve is a important person, and everybody deserves that protection, inclusion, to live in a safe community, to be respected fully. All of those things need to be addressed in the community events that this committee, whoever is going to be on it, to form some kind of a task group where people are now tired of that, what's going on here. And somewhere, somehow, there's got to be a good answer for us to address all this. Because, in the paper, I was reading the story about Autumn, and it talked about the, I can't even think of the word, like reasons why it happened. Like, they did it because there's no reason because to hurt somebody like that. Like, and then they talk about these groups of people, I guess, that just seem that they want to hurt people. That's their mission. So, yeah, I think we're all afraid to hear what people's stories are, but you know what? It is darn scary for everybody right now. So that's all I'm going to say right now. Thank you.
Now, Hazel, for your input and comments. So again, do appreciate everyone's comments and input in looking to start to address this issue and what it looks like. And so, again, I want to continue to put this on agenda. I think we may have to even look to, setting aside a specific night or day or whatever that looks like of just this topic alone. Because we have to go, there's so many moving items, and to really get in depth on the issue itself and trying to build out strategies to assist in addressing this issue in our community. And I think that's something that will again be part of the strategy moving forward, and how we can again set aside the time to have these thorough good discussions and build what these strategies look like. So just want to say now to everybody, as well as Kennedy and those who again have been putting this forward to leadership, and be able to again have some concrete action. So I'll continue to work on the next step from this point and bringing that back to the table, in addition to reaching out to the families and so forth to have further conversations on any further assistance that may be needed at this time. So that being said, I just want to say now to everyone for their contributions in the conversation, and this is just the start. So there's much more to happen from the next step from this point. So now for everyone, I'm going to shift just really quickly as we're now to 5.1, your in-camera agendas, and I'll look to Nathan to speak to 5.1 in the recommendation.
Thanks, Chief. So this is kind of one of those standard items that the police commission would normally come to appoint a new officer. So there was a hiring process completed. That hiring process was for Dylan Johnson, and he was successful in acquiring the position. He is a new recruit, and he will be required to go to the Ontario Police College recruitment training that starts May 18th, and his employment with Six Nations Police Service will start on May 12th. So as you know, the OPP does require that band council resolution to support the appointment, and just putting that recommendation forward now. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. So just to clarify, Nathan, you are moving on the recommendation 5.1?
Yes.
I'll second
Okay,
it, Mark.
thank you.
Audrey?
Okay, thank you, Audrey. Second by Audrey. Are there any further questions or comments for Nathan? Okay, seeing, oh, sorry, Wendy?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Normally, police services, they bring new recruits just to introduce them to the community. So is that something that's going to happen later on, or it's just a normal process?
Sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I think it's going to be right after he finishes at Ontario Police College, when he returns back to the community.
And I know I was to reach out to Chief Montour prior to this meeting, so I suspected that that was one of the pieces in terms of bringing forward any really all new recruits, so that council's aware and can put names to faces type of thing. Okay, are there any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading.
I'll move.
Second it.
Moved by Nathan, seconded by Audrey to waive second reading on the previous motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, so just really quickly before we adjourn to our next portion of the agenda, again, for those wondering and inquiring on when we'll be back in the chambers, so there was just again a few delays in the construction of the washrooms, so that those are wrapping up as we speak. And again, we want to be able to have a hybrid model, so that because from my point of view and perspective, we have never had so much engagement via Zoom as we did in chambers. We'd get the odd, 10 or so people, or if it was a bigger issue, then obviously there'd be more in person, but we will be moving back into the chambers. We're gonna still look to have our meetings via Zoom in the chambers as well, that they'll be live streamed via that, but we'll also look to hybrid models so that we still can continue to get as much inclusion in our meetings. So that will be happening. Our goal really for community awareness, as you know, is approaching, is to have a full-on open house to the council building and looking to the renovations, and so people can come and see. And so that's going to be planned for part of our event at community awareness. And again, we'll be moving into the chambers quite quickly and soon. So I just thought I would note that, as that was requested from a council to be put on the agenda. Wendy, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just thought I should note that on the police, the recruitment of Constable Johnson, I'm not related, so I know sometimes there's a link to last name, so I actually don't know who the person is. So just noted for that awareness.
I could definitely appreciate that. Thanks for that note, Wendy. Hazel.
Hazel. That Dylan Johnson is my grandson.
Oh, okay, so did you declare a conflict?
No, I didn't think I had to declare a conflict because this has not got anything to do with I don't know.
I think just process wise, it would look good for you to declare a conflict in that.
I will declare then. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that, Hazel, for declaring that conflict.
Yeah, Melba? Melba?
Sorry, Melba?
Yeah, I think we really need to talk about that more, about this conflict. You have a conflict. Darren has a conflict with his brother, and yet we deal with these things, and it's not like we're benefiting right directly.
So,
it may be in the
just really
future
quickly,
because that's their job. So if
Yeah,
we could do that
totally
in the
understand.
future.
Yeah, it's going to be on the agenda. I know it's been an issue of contentiousness with this council from the get-go. We're just looking for, again, proper process and protocol, whatever that looks like. Obviously, when we talk about conflict, there's no financial gain, there's no pieces, but just generically wise, we're in a real small community. Obviously, we're always going to be in conflict with something, but to declare it and to make sure that we're up front and center about it eliminates then the further speculation of whatever it may be community perceives as. I think it's more the perception. So we need to have that conversation more in depth, because at the end of the day, we still have to move forward with business, and we'll continue to have that solution to what that conflict looks like, so that we're all on the same page. So do appreciate that. Okay, council, that's all I have for the open session. I'll now look to a motion to adjourn. Moved by Michelle, second by Wendy. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you all for joining us this evening at General Council. We have a lot of work, as you can tell, and so we're looking forward to our next steps on a number of our pieces raised tonight in our discussions. So please have a great evening, have a great rest of your week, and we will see you soon.